So, you play Hypixel Skyblock and you want to know how to do more damage. Well, this video is for you. Before we get into the video, if you do watch my videos and you haven't subscribed, please make sure you do so. We're on the road to 2k, so let's make it happen. So within Hypixel Skyblock, there are quite a few components that actually do build up to give you your end damage. So we're going to be going over them all today, and we're just going to be seeing where you can improve your damage. So the first thing that we're going to look at today is going to be accessories and talismans. So if we go over to our accessories bag, this is where we can store all of our accessories and talismans, and I have them all reforged to shaded at the moment, as you can see. Now, shaded for every talisman is not the best for damage. If you have every single talisman in the game and reforge them all to shaded, you'll be doing less damage as opposed to if you actually broke it down and looked at what would be best. Because the idea at the moment is, because of the strength nerf, essentially the way strength has been calculated has now been changed. So strength and crit damage are now equal to each other in terms of sort of effectiveness. So if you go over to your Skyblock profile, at the moment my crit damage is 273 and my strength is 271. So as you can see, as like sort of like a base sort of stat, those stats are very similar, and that's what you want to try and do. Get these numbers as close to each other as possible to deal maximum damage. If you're wondering how to actually get the shaded enchantment, if you go to the auction house and type in dark orb, it will be a reforged stone that you can buy for 650k. Sorry, that's not actually the right price. For 690k. And effectively, all you need to do is buy one of them and go over to the advanced reforging in the Dungeons hub. And in the bottom right, it should let you apply reforge your accessory bag, so you can reforge all of your accessories at once to the same reforge, which is really cost effective and just very useful altogether. So the next component to doing more damage is going to be your combat level. So if you go over to skills and you go over to combat, as you can see at the moment I'm combat 31, so obviously not 50. If you had combat 50, then you would be doing way more damage. As you can see, deal 200% more damage at level 50, and at the moment I'm dealing 124% more damage. So basically the moral of the story is the higher your combat level, the more crit damage you'll do, and it's as simple as that. And if you do want to check your combat skill, or then how much crit damage you'll actually do for your combat level, just hover over it and I'll show you. So that crit damage stat will contribute towards my base crit damage. As you can see there, it's 273. So the next factor that's going to contribute to how much damage you do is actually going to be your foraging level, because if you go over to skills, if you'll let me get onto it and go on foraging, as you can see, it gives you strength every time you level up your foraging. So actually I sort of need to work on that. My foraging is only 19. If I actually did do more foraging, then I would deal quite a lot more damage, but as you can see, it gives you +2 strength every time you level up your foraging. So potentially if you went to level 25, that's 50 extra strength as a base stat, which is obviously going to be very useful. So the next thing that we are going to look at is if we come to our Nether Star again and we look at what pets we have. Your pet is going to obviously affect your damage. So at the moment, I'll probably say my most damaging pet is probably this Griffin. So as you can see, it gives plus 47 crit damage, plus 23 strength, and also it gives you a constant strength, so that also adds to it as well. If you were early game, I would recommend an Enderman, just because it gives you crit damage at level 100. It'll give you plus 75 crit damage, which is a nice buff. A lot of people recently have started to use tigers purely because of the ferocity that they actually give. So an epic tiger level 100 is going to give you plus 50 ferocity. Now, if you don't know what ferocity is, basically with my 37.5% ferocity that the tiger gives me, that gives me an extra 37.5% chance of my hit dealing double damage. So say if you have 100% ferocity, every single time you hit, you'll be doing double damage. Even at this point in the game, after all the updates that's come out, obviously it depends exactly on what you want the pet for, in terms of what combat area you actually need it for, but all this time later, the Ender Dragon still seems to be the most damaging pet. Obviously it's just very expensive, but yeah, that seems to still be in general the most damaging pet. So the next thing that's very important is going to be your armour. Now this seems obvious, but obviously there's better and worse pieces of armour for damage, but at the moment my most damaging set of armour will be the Shadow Assassin, with the golden sedan's head. This is more for dungeons really, but it still does deal a lot of damage outside of dungeons. Obviously there's many more options, and this video isn't going to be a recommendation to what armor pieces you should get, because that is going to be massively dependent on how much money you've got and like what skills you've got and everything like that. But what I will say is when you're looking for a set of armor, is you want to look for a piece that has like crit damage and strength, because obviously they're the main two components that you need in order to do more damage. So a set of armor that has a lot of crit damage and a lot of strength is always going to be good. Another thing you might want to consider is if you don't have a 100% crit chance, obviously you want to sort of be doing as much crit damage as you can, because crit damage is essential. So also, if you can get a set of armor that also does a lot of that gives you a lot of crit chance, if you don't already have 100%, then that's also a bonus. Now within dungeons, this video isn't going to go into too much depth within dungeons, but generally, as you can see at the top of my armor set, it has 5 stars. So 5 stars is essentially, I mean, each star is an upgrade, and from entrance to floor 7, the maximum stars you can get is just 5 normal stars. Each star will cost essence depending on what the actual particular piece of armor requires, and basically what it does is it just makes your actual stats scale more within dungeons. So the next thing that we've got to cover is weaponry. So at the moment, as you can see, the weapon that I have is a living dagger. Now this is very good for damage purely because it gives you 100% crit chance, which is very nice to have. That means every single time you hit anything, it doesn't matter, you're going to get a crit hit, which is essential. And as you can see, plus 100% crit damage, plus 155 strength as a base stat, and plus 713 damage. So it is sort of like a very, very well and very nice damaging sword. So a rule of thumb when you're looking to buy a weapon is you want that crit damage and strength to be high. The initial damage you also want to be fairly high. In terms of bonus attack speed, as much attack speed as you can helps. Essentially what that means is if I have 100% attack speed like I have there on the living dagger, that means I can hit twice as fast as I usually can. So it will basically register hits. It will register twice as many hits as it would usually register. Therefore, technically, in terms of DPS, you'll be doing double damage. So basically, all I can really say in terms of a weapon, because obviously once again I'm not recommending something, it's relative to where you are in the game. So you want something that basically on face value has a good amount of strength and a good amount of crit damage. As you can see, again, it's 5-starred. It's the same as the armor, it just basically scales the more stars you've got in dungeons. Like I said, I'm not going to cover dungeons too much in this video, but it is something that you can consider. So the next things that I'm going to cover, I'm going to group up into one group altogether, because to be honest with you, there's a lot of things that contribute towards damage, so it will take a while to do them all individually, but I'm going to group a few of them together. So I'm going to group 3 together, and the first one is going to be Reforges. So as you can see on this living dagger here, I have Fabled Reforge. Fabled you get from a Reforge stone, and basically it just gives you a fairly nice amount of crit damage and strength, which is what you want. They're not exactly the same, but they are sort of similar. So at the moment, in terms of like a melee damage sword, Fabled is pretty much going to be as good as it gets. Now something else you might notice about this living dagger is it's mythic, so it's recombobulated. Now recombobulators you can either obtain from dungeons chests, or if you go over to the bazaar and you go to oddities, recombobulator is right here, recombobulator 3000, and as you can see they're around 5.2 million coins. Essentially what this does is ups the rarity of the living dagger, and the benefit of that is your Reforge does more. It basically buffs your weapon more, and that's pretty much all there is to it. It's the same with the armor. As you can see on my armor set, it's all recombobulated. So basically that means that the Reforges are buffed, and that's pretty much it. In terms of Reforges for your armor, if you want to do the most amount of damage, you want Ancient. Ancient is pretty much as good as it gets in terms of Reforges for armor. In terms of damage, it is a really, really nice help. And the last thing within this little subsection of the video is hot potato and fuming potato books. So once again, coming back to the livid dagger, next to my damage and my strength it says plus 20. Basically what this means is that it's been hot potato booked 10 times. So if we come over to the bazaar, hot potato books are, they've actually gone down in price a little bit. If you put offers in, you can get them for 40k each. So you need to spend 400k to get this plus 20 buff that I've got here. Essentially all it does is it just gives it an extra plus 20 buff on the crit damage and strength. It's as simple as that. Something else you can also do is buy fuming potato books, which are around 1,000,000 coins each. If you apply 5 fuming potato books, it would take this plus 20 buff to a plus 30 buff on both of them. It's up to you to decipher if you think it's worth it or not. It depends how much money you have. So yeah, I can't really tell if it's worth it or not. It just is relative to your situation. And that is also the case in terms of armour. So when you hot potato an armour, a piece of armour, if you fully hot potato it with the 10 hot potato books on each, it'll give you plus 20 defense and plus 40 HP. And my helmet is actually fuming potatoed, so it'll give you plus 30 defense and plus 60 HP. So that's sort of how it works. Now at the moment, just after the strength nerf, a massive component to how much damage you actually do is basically if you have one for all or not. If you don't know what one for all is, it's basically some like an enchantment in a way that replaces every other enchantment and basically does 210 extra base damage onto your weapon. So that's the buff of it. If you're not 100% sure on the ins and outs of this and the actual difference it'll make to your weapon, then I have an individual video that I made when the strength nerf first came out. I'll link it in the description in case it's going to be useful for anyone. So yeah, I'd check that out if you're unsure on it. The book at the moment I think costs around 13 million. When the strength nerf first came out it went up to about 53 million. So yeah. If you don't have one for all and you do have enough coins to buy it, then I would definitely recommend buying it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to the zombies over here at the hub, and I'm just going to put my armour set on, and we're going to do a damage test with my living dagger. And well, first actually we're going to do it with our fist, and then we're going to do it with the weapon, and then we're going to do it with the pet. So we're going to see the damage difference throughout the 3 different stages, just so you can see the difference that basically all 3 of them make. So if we just go over to a zombie and hit it, so we're doing 60 crit damage, which is obviously not fantastic. If we go over to a zombie with the livid dagger, we're doing 84k damage in the front, and livid dagger has an ability where it basically does double damage if you hit the enemy in the back. So if it will stop turning around, we didn't quite get it there. We didn't quite get it there either. This one should be fine. And we didn't quite get it there. There we go, 157k. Sometimes it's a bit glitchy with the hitbox, but it does do double damage in the back. Now, I'm going to put my pet on in just a second, but I would probably argue that this is the most important thing in terms of damage, because you'll see your damage go up so much just from a simple thing as a pet. On face value, you might not think it's actually worth much having a pet, but it definitely is. So we've got our Griffin pet on, and we're just going to do the same damage test on this zombie. That for some reason registers as a back hit as 200k, but in the front it does do 100k. So as you can see, the damage has increased. 111k is slightly inconsistent, it will change a little bit, but on the general it's 100k in the front and 200k in the back. That glitched again. So you can see the difference that the pet makes. I'd argue that that's probably the most important thing if you haven't sort of checked that you have the right pet for damaging or a pet whatsoever. Now the living dagger does have a right click ability where you can basically throw a dagger from your sword at an enemy, so we're going to see the damage on that. 373k, which is, I mean, I know I didn't do it prior to the pet, but it also would have been less. So to be honest, that's pretty much going to be it for the guide. I've not really touched too much on dungeons. This isn't a dungeons guide, this is just simply in general how to do more damage. So that is going to be the end of the video for today. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you do leave a like. If you have any suggestions or any feedback, then make sure you leave it in the comments. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you next time.